Hi guys, I'm Leslie with All Things Books, and I am joined tonight once again with Caitlin Cardella, who writes under the pen name K Cardella. And tonight we are going to be talking about Book 2 in the Fatal Florals duet, The Black Lotus, which, if you guys tuned in for Book 1 or you're new to the show and have happened upon Caitlin's books, this is a morally black romance, and there's a heavy trigger warning list, so I advise viewer discretion and reader discretion if you do choose to read these books. Your mental health matters first and foremost, and due to the nature of this being a book 2 and a duet, there might be some questions that are spoiler content, so if you would like to read before watching, now is the time to read. The buy link for book 2 is going to be in the caption of this episode. And thank you, Caitlin, for joining me again. Are you excited to be back on the show as we talk about The Black Lotus tonight?
I am. Thank you for having me again. I'm excited to talk about book 2.
So we left book 1 with talking about that cliffhanger, and now we're back inside the world of Serena and Aster. And a question I am going to set off with, and this is not a spoiler because it's in the blurb. His mother, we learn more about his parents and his mother in this book. Was it ironic for you that Aster is this horrible man, but the only red flag that Serena points out in this book is that his mother does not like her and wants her to be out of the picture permanently?
Yeah, so because Serena, she just had her first kill at the end of book 1. So she's basically coming into her serial killer self, and now she gets to be trained and get to finally become who she was always meant to be, with Aster by her side. So she doesn't see anything wrong with Aster. She was already fascinated and obsessed with the morbid Monet, and to be able to be by his side and his sidekick now pretty much, and kill the people who are the bad people coming after her. She sees the only thing wrong that's not really even wrong with him is his mother wants her dead. So she's basically just like, your mom's the problem. There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect. Keep killing.
And it's the same with him. He's like, everything's falling together, but now my mom is throwing a wrench into all my plans.
Exactly.
um, we talked about how a big part of who Aster is in book 1 is kind of like this boy who just wants to live in his parents' footsteps. And he kind of has this moment of struggling in this book because essentially his mom is now the person who is causing him the grief. She's no longer the person he looks up to or one of the most important people in her life. Was in his life. Was that learning point and kind of that change of view, did that come naturally as you wrote his story in this book, or was it kind of a struggle to dig into that psych aspect of that's almost like a 360 switch?
It is. So I feel like Blue Rose was a lot about Aster, but Black Lotus focuses more on Serena, and that's exactly what I wanted to go through. But I also wanted to show you a little bit more of Aster's past. Like, you get to see why he was so obsessed with his parents. You get to see him in foster care, but you also got to see the moment that relationship between him and his parents broke, because they didn't want to see him, but he also didn't understand why, and he still wanted to make his parents proud. And in book 1 you see that he marks his victim's lips red because his mom hates that color. So to him, and he even says it in Black Lotus, his mom was dead to him a long time ago, because she pretty much abandoned him. Even though she got arrested, she chose not to see him, chose to ignore his letters, chose to basically act like he was never born. And for him to learn he has a sister and they've been making contact with her, that was like a huge guttural punch to him, because he's just like, why her? Why not me? And writing that brokenness inside him, it was easier for him to want to even kill everybody she sent his way, but he even said, I will kill my own mother to keep you safe, because the only person who matters to him in his life is Serena. His parents or chopped liver. And you get to see why they are in Black Lotus, which I really loved writing because I got to dive deeper into his childhood.
And one more question on his past,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if you can necessarily answer this one, but the sister,
Mm-hmm.
will we see more of that relationship if she gets a book? Is she getting a book? Will we see more of a sibling type bond if there are future either novellas or stories that come from this world?
Yeah, Zafira, I absolutely adore her, and she has become a fan favorite. And I always did plan to write her book, but I was gonna put her book on the back burner to take a break in the serial killer world, but she was like, not so fast. So I am actually working on her book right now. It is a full novel. It is only gonna be one book, and she will have two love interests who you do meet briefly at the end. And let's just say her book is gonna be way more gruesome, way more gory because, she's a cannibal. So, if people thought the duet was gory, I feel like Zafira's book is more splatterpunk and horror erotica than the duet was dark romance because she went through way worse than what Aster went through, and I will dive deep into her traumas and what she's going through now. And I hope everybody does love her book because I love her character so much. And you will see because, at the end, they want Zafira on their team going after the bad guys. That's how the epilogue is. So Zafira's book is actually an opening of somebody she's killing too, just like her brother. Ha ha ha. But the second chapter that I'm writing is funny because, she's closer to Aster and Serena now. And it's going to be like, Zafira, what the fuck? Because of what she did. So they're going to have that brother and sister bond that they never really had. It's going to start growing. And it's funny. It's comical, I feel like, with how I'm writing it. And I just can't wait for readers to see them together and Serena to just kind of like be sitting back and laughing. But she's like, there, I'll put them in. But they aren't the main focus of her book. They are background characters in her book because she is the main focus.
And for Serena,
Mm-hmm.
was because in this book we do very much also get that obsession, jealousy vibe where she doesn't appreciate the female attention on Aster. When we introduce said sister Zafira into the book and he meets her, did you grapple with the fact that maybe Serena's reactions to him having a female relative wouldn't be the most supportive at first?
Well, I feel like Serena was supportive because she first saw her at the flea market and she thought she was hot and she was like, wait, am I gay now? But she's not, obviously. But she was also like flirting at the end of Blue Rose, and Aster was the jealous one. Serena wasn't jealous because she's like, that's your blood sister, and like there's no reason for me to be jealous. Serena was jealous over other characters like Kelsey, which is the twisted trickster in Black Lotus, and that that scene when I introduced her because you met somebody Aster was in foster care with, that was a person that made Serena jealous because Kelsey was his first everything, and the fact that she was delusional thinking she would get him back made Serena see red, and she what happened. But she was never jealous of Zafira, and she wanted to become closer to her. She was just, they didn't know how because Zafira was sent by their mother to watch her as killers came for Serena. So there was like that wall between them because of that. But the characters, when I wrote it, they always wanted to be closer to each other, and they eventually do. There was never jealousy, though.
I might have worded it wrong, but I always have to ask because there are books where it's no one. You get me and that is it. But
Oh, yeah.
I did like how Zafira was a character that just kind of ended up helping both of them in different ways.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why a lot of people loved her. And she was also a comedic relief, I feel like, throughout the book, because she just pops up at the end of every kill like, hey, ha ha ha.
Um, For this book, and I didn't ask it in the last one,
Mhm.
but was there a search that you did, or, and I know you said you didn't research a lot for these two, but was there anything you did look up that you were like, oh my God, someone's gonna come after me for looking this up?
I had to look up certain tools that were used to torture and kill. So I did look up those and like the actual name for specific things. Like one of the tools I used, people were like, "What is that?" I was like, "Well, that's the actual name for this thing." So I did look those up. But my editor, she actually when I wrote the torture scenes, she put in the sounds that the flesh tearing or the bones popping. She was the one who added those little snippets in. But I put them in, but she helped me elevate it more to where it would be like, oh fuck, you can actually imagine yourself hearing or seeing. But I didn't research that part. I just researched the tools.
So this is another book I didn't ask in the first one, partly because I wanted to ask it in this one since there's both books out now.
Hmm.
The titles are The Black Lotus, which is this book, and The Blue Rose, which was book one. For a reader who may be watching that either doesn't mind spoilers or might have missed a clue, was there anything behind the titles of the books and the way the Black Lotus is almost in reference to them together at the end?
Yeah, so the blue rose, like I mentioned before, it came I like in the first interview, I came up with the idea in 7th grade and the title was always the blue rose and I was always going to make the killer's signature a blue rose. But when I did the second book, I didn't have a title in mind, but I knew I wanted it to be a flower and I looked up color meanings and flower meanings. And the Black Lotus represents rebirth, transformation, and everything. So anything you see in my books, I will always find a meaning to. So why I did blue, like I found the meaning for blue stuff. I found the meaning for why Aster's name is Aster, what that means. There's little hidden, not Easter eggs, but things that I did. Like if you see certain things, you're like, I wonder what that means. I definitely looked it up, and that is the reason why I chose that specific thing. But because the Black Lotus was all about Serena and her transformation, that is why I ended up choosing the Black Lotus, because one of the quotes I actually put in the book is about the black. She chose the Black Lotus because it represents rebirth and transformation, and the meaning behind it in real life does represent that. So that's why the second book was titled The Black Lotus.
I have two fun questions.
Mhm.
The first one, the balloon animals. Why? But in reality, a lot of people commented that they can't ever look at balloon animals the same way again, and they're like a common childhood staple for most people. Was there a deeper reason behind why you chose the balloon animals, or did you just always think that's something fun and unique to do, and I'm gonna ruin something that everyone had in their childhood?
My mind is very twisted, but before I started writing the serial killers who were coming after them, I actually reached out to my beta readers for ideas for things to spark. And some of them had really great ideas that I didn't use. But me and my friend, Becca, she was the one who was like, what if you did a clown? And I was like, ooh, that's a great idea. And we had a conversation. And then I was like, ooh, balloon animals, because clowns did balloon animals. And because I love clowns, that's why I put it in. And she helped me figure out the name because I came up with the MO of the balloon twisting the intestines into shapes like a balloon animal, because that's like your intestines kind of look like a balloon animal, you know? And we came up with the name Twisted Trickster together. And it's funny because I was in Spirit Halloween and I saw a costume of a clown that said Twisted Trickster, and I sent it to her and I was like, oh my God, it's a sign. Like, this is definitely her name and this is her MO. And she's the only one out of all the ideas that people were giving, like what I should like do, which I didn't do, giving to me. She was the only one that I kept because I loved that one.
Uh, on the Tale of Weird Things, this book does have a lot of spice.
Hmm.
There's also a lot of deviancy in the spice in some sense because of who the characters are. What was
Yes.
the wildest thing that happened in this book between them that had you either cringing while writing or doing that evil little author laugh going, oh my God, I can't wait for them to hit this part of the book?
I would say it is the waffle scene. So everybody loved the pizza scene in Blue Rose, that which honestly surprised me that it was a lot of people's favorite spicy scene, because the haunted house was my favorite spicy scene in Blue Rose, but a lot of readers loved the pizza scene and they begged for me to write another food scene in Black Lotus, and that is how the waffle scene came to life. And then I was like, haha, whipped cream. Let's ruin whipped cream for people. And they were like, when my, betas and ARC readers read it, and everybody else who's reading it now, they were just like, oh my God, that sounds painful. And I thought it was funny because, Aster compares his schlong to the whipped cream can, like, it's not much bigger. And that made me giggle because I was like, she can take that. I'm sure she can take this. Because it's like a torture in a way, because you're shoving a whipped cream can up your hoo-ha. That scene made me laugh because I was like, haha, like the evil author laugh. That's the scene.
For Aster and Serena, on the other end of not spice, but the intensity between them as she kind of becomes her own version of a morally black character.
Hmm.
When you knew that this was the route she was going to take, did you always know that Aster was going to be 100% supportive of her becoming essentially another villain in the story? Just because a lot of times these romances aren't dual serial unalivers, and the man likes that sense of like innocence or naivety in the male female lead. But Serena obviously is not. She is not
Yeah.
that.
So, in the first book, in the haunted house scene, he says that, because we're in his point of view, because I tend to write the sex scenes in his point of view, because you don't see that a lot in dark romance. It's usually the girl's point of view. So I wanted to do it more in his point of view. He said that was the night he saw the darkness in her eyes. And that is when he really started to fall for her. So him seeing her in a different light, seeing that same darkness, it was what made him love her. So he never saw her as somebody, and when she was his victim, innocent, I'm going to kill her type thing. But when he saw that same darkness, that sparked something inside of him. And that's what really made him start to be like, I want her. I want to protect her. So watching her become who she was to him, and the only thing on his mind in Black Lotus was protecting her, making sure she was safe. And he didn't care. Like, he never paid attention to himself because he was always worried about her, because he never thought he needed to worry about himself.
On the flip side, since this book is one of the main things in book two was dealing with the mom,
Mhm.
did you ever have a point, and this was a question I saw while I was kind of trolling reviews again, where you were like, I need to include something about her questioning if she was to take out the mom, that she would be in fear that maybe he would leave her or that it wouldn't be taken the best?
I feel like I never questioned that, because Cynthia is the true villain in this story. Like, she is as my favorite thing that I wrote in Black Lotus were the villain monologues. And when you got to her villain monologue, she was pure evil. Like, you felt no, you don't feel like she would have a redemption arc, because she wouldn't. She's a true evil person. So I feel like if Serena took her out, Aster would feel like he wouldn't be sad, but he would also be like, my mom's dead, but he also wouldn't care because she was already dead to him. So I feel like he would want to be the one to do it, though, and he would feel some type of way if she did it. But if it was to save herself, then he wouldn't have cared. But we all know how Cynthia's demise happens.
Getting into some of the fun questions. The tagline of this book gives kind of an ominous warning to the readers.
Hmm.
When you made this the emphasized lines, because it is two sentences, did you always see where their story was going? And I asked this because did you write it before or after this book was written?
What two lines are you talking about?
Their deaths will represent the birth of something much more dangerous, something that shows the beauty in her darkness, her rebirth, and her transformation, the Black Lotus.
So actually, I knew where the story was about to answer that question, but writing the blurb is honestly harder than writing a book because you need something that is catchy. My PA, she's incredible, Mallory, I love her to death. She actually wrote the blurb and the tagline for the Black Lotus because I was struggling so hard with it. So all that goes to her for it. And I do put that in the acknowledgments that she did write the blurb. But I knew exactly where I wanted it to go. Like I said, I write per chapter, and I have moments where like a scene will pop in my head and I'll write it down to go back to later when I get to that point of the book. But I always knew how I wanted it to end. And I always, since I know how the ending is, I get so excited to get to the ending because I'm like, oh, I just can't wait to write the ending because that's like my favorite part.
Um, and on topics of the ending,
Hmm.
was there a character when all was said and done, besides Saphira, because I know that's been asked a lot, that speaks to you now that surprised you or maybe didn't surprise you, and you're like, now they need to have a story?
Are you talking about this ending for Aster and Serena?
Yes. So now that you're done with their book and it's tied up in a really bloody bow, is there a side character that came out of the woodwork in either book that is now screaming at you that they need a book besides Zafira? Because we do know that she is going to get hers.
Not really. Some people, some readers have asked for a novella about Cynthia and Adam, about their love story and how they became the patchwork killers. And I despise Cynthia's character. She's, like I said, a true villain. So I don't know if that'll ever come to fruition. Plus, if I don't think I could ever write a novella, honestly, because I talk too much to begin with, and I feel like their story would need a whole book. Um, and all the other side characters you meet in Black Lotus die because they're the killers coming after them. So I don't think anybody else would get a book besides Saphira's.
Okay. This was a question I also saw, slightly related to it. Now that we know that Zafira will get a book
Hmm.
and that you're in the process of writing it, what is the hardest aspect of writing a story with, a cannibal? I was trying to find a nicer way to say that, but I can't think of a way to word it.
It's funny because I can't watch horror, and cannibals absolutely terrify me. Like, Wrong Turn is about cannibals, and that movie absolutely terrifies me, but I can watch it. I love Hannibal Lecter because his mind is so profound. And I get to now bring Zafira's story to life, how she became a cannibal, because people are going to be like, why is she a cannibal? Why is she the man eater? How did she become that? How did she just taste flesh one day? And I can't wait for readers to find out and for my story to develop that way. But the beginning chapter that I have for her book is it's hilarious. And, she always makes her victims eat themselves. Like, that is her MO. She has like her victims eat themselves, so she does forced cannibalism. And again, that is a trigger warning in Black Lotus because it is spoken about, because we learn a little bit about Zafira um in the Black Lotus. And I just feel like her character, cannibalism is horrible thing, because why would you eat humans? That's disgusting. But her character with her cannibalism is kind of comedic to me because of the way she does it, and it's just, I don't know, it's just funny to me, which is kind of fucked up thing to say, but she is hilarious to me.
And I have another question along those lines.
Hmm.
Is there any type of trigger warning that you would never include in a story?
Yes, my hard triggers are anything with animals that I will never ever harm or kill an animal in any of my books or children. Those are my hard triggers. You probably will never see a pregnancy trope for me or a miscarriage or abortion trope because I've been through the miscarriage thing, and even reading those in books, that's a hard trigger for me because I don't like reliving those types of things. So those are the things you will never ever see in my books.
Um, I do have a few rapid questions again. Some of
Okay.
them are the same as last time because I love to see if there's anything different from book one to book two. So the
Yeah.
first one is going to be, which character was the most fun for you to be inside in this second book?
Ah, gosh. See, the villains were my favorite because I got to write their the villain monologues were my absolute favorite, and no matter how much I hate Cynthia, she was the most fun to write at the end with the villain monologue. But Zafira, still, she's my favorite to write because she's freaking hilarious, and what she does at the end just made me laugh.
Now that you have their duet out in the wild,
Mhm.
is it still surreal to you that you have published two full-length books?
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And like I turned it into an omnibus, which is amazing. I have some surprises coming out next year. I don't think I can talk about yet, but let's just say there's some surprises coming out next year I'm really excited about. And I don't know, it's just I reread some of the things I wrote, like when I reread the book to go back in for facts while I'm writing Zafira's book, or I read the quotes that I wrote, and I just think, holy shit, I wrote that. Because it is surreal. It's like when I'm writing, it feels like an out of body experience because the words just pour out of me. But then, like, if I'm just talking to people, sometimes I have good things that come out of me, but it's just like, where did that even come from? Where did this quote develop from? Like, my brain is a very interesting thing in my head.
Um, my next question is, what has been one of the most rewarding things to you as an author who has completed a series now and it's been in the hands of readers?
The most amazing thing is readers, because without the readers taking a chance on me, I wouldn't be able to get to keep writing. Like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my husband's the one who has all the income, but the things that I get to do for readers, like make my book boxes or have signed copies and all the goodies I include with it, all the character art, because the readers buy my book, I get to do that. I get to write more, and through readers, I've made a lot of new friendships, and a lot of people have decided to become like writers themselves because of me, and they told me that I'm the reason they are pursuing this because they see I can do it, and they're like, I can do it too. And that's just the most amazing thing, and I just feel so honored to be somebody's reason for pursuing their own dream.
One of my last questions, we've talked about what's to come,
Hmm.
and normally I would ask if there's any type of tease that you can give, but since we kind of know whose story is next, I'm going to frame it differently.
Okay.
If for books outside of the dark aspect or taking a break from some morally black characters, are there anything in the works that we can expect from you that might bring in some new readers to you?
Um, I feel like everything I write, no matter, I do want to write monster smut eventually because I have a couple things in my brain and I love monster smut. It'll always be dark though, no matter if it's monster, dark romance, or like paranormal. There will always be some dark aspect to my books because and I write that easier, and I don't think I would ever write a fluffy romance or fantasy because fantasy is fucking hard, and props to those who can write it, but that is not for me. And fluffy romances, I do not like the tropes in those. So those are the two main ones you will never see me write, and everything I write will always be dark.
Okay. My last question is, if you had the chance to go back and redo something in the process of this duet, do you have something that you would want to redo, or maybe something you learned along the way that you wish you had known going into this this journey?
So story-wise, no, I would keep everything exactly the same because I poured my heart and soul and my trauma into these two books, and I loved how with both of them, everything came full circle. Writing-wise, I am a baby author. It was my debut. I've seen things where people said, I said, he said, she said too much, or Little Lamb was repeated too much. I read the reviews. I am a glutton for punishment. I've seen things that people don't like about my writing style, and I have improved. I feel like with book two, and especially with 𝑬𝑿𝑪𝑳𝑼𝑽𝑬 book, I do more action instead of saying he said, she said, because reading other books you don't see that much. But like I said, it was my first book. I was a baby author. I learn as I go. So the things that I would change about the first book would be the overuse of Little Lamb, since people hated that, and the he said, she said stuff. But that would be it. Story wise, absolutely keep everything the same. That is exactly how I wanted it.
Well, that concludes the questions that I have for you for the Black Lotus. I think I did pretty good of not spoiling too much of this story. But thank you once again for joining me for part 2 of your duet. And I hope for you guys watching that you learn some insides to Katelyn's process, or you're now convinced to go back and read both. I do know I love to spoil myself sometimes, and it's a bad habit I really need to break. But thank you everyone for tuning in. You can like and subscribe and leave comments and questions. I will do my best to get all of them answered. And like I said, the buy link for the book will be in the captions. Thank you, Katelyn, for
Thank you so much for having me.
today and for talking about the Black Lotus and letting me dig into your head a little. That is it for now for us. The next book that she's writing is still in progress. So for those
And no title.
who are avid fans of hers already, I cannot tell you if she'll be back on the show because I don't know when it is. I don't know when it's going to come out, but I hope if she decides to publish, we get to have her here again. And as always, it's a blast to talk to you guys, and I love finding new books. So thank you for reaching out and letting me read your books and talk to you about them.
Thanks so much. I really enjoyed talking about it and getting to do this with you.
You're welcome.